Continue to look at the historical Jesus as followers of Jesus. This is one of Jesus's short, sagacious sayings. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it in a cellar or under a basket, but on a stand, so that those who enter may see the light. So he's encouraging his followers to let their light shine. We've heard that metaphor before. So I want to use this scripture this morning to address how this might be applicable to those of us who are followers of Jesus. Now, by the way, notice how people today in our society like to share good tips or good news. Hey, Vaughn's has got turkey for 39 cents a pound. Great, thanks a lot. Well, by the way, did you know, I just heard that turmeric lowers your blood pressure. And by the way, people are telling me that all the time because I have blood pressure. And I appreciate it. Hey, stay off the 405. I just heard there's an accident there going south. Thanks.
SOP.
Hey, I heard another report that social media diminishes brain matter in youth.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to know. Don't fly American, they just raised their ticket prices. You know, all this stuff we share in a culture back and forth. But have you also noticed in our culture, we tend to avoid sharing any information that might help someone if in doing so we might offend them. Yep. Even if it may save their lives. Even family members can be reticent to say something that might make a parent or a sibling feel uncomfortable. Social and cultural conditioning has a powerful influence on us. I would suggest that's one reason we're hesitant to say something, if we're afraid it may hurt someone's feelings. By the way, have you ever stepped out and spoken up to a family member or a close friend about an issue that you felt jeopardized their well-being? You finally just, had to speak up. Uncomfortable as it is, but you spoke up. It's one of the most uncomfortable things we can do, this type of intervention, out of love. And again, I suggest because our culture, we live in a culture where, it's either none of our business or we just don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. You're killing yourself, but I don't want to hurt your feelings. Now, that's a cultural thing. And I would suggest one of the main reasons for this reticence or hesitance is that the reaction of someone, even if we're talking to them for their own good, is they feel that we are not accepting them or we're judging them. That we're somehow better than them. So we don't want to hurt their feelings. And we watch them hurt themselves. Now, by the way, ministers are especially in a delicate situation. And I hate it. Scotty and I have shared, I know Mike's been in this situation. I know people feel uncomfortable, especially when a holy man talks to them about their personal problems. Maybe their marriage, terrible attitude, their health, they're mistreating others, they got a drug problem, etc. I hate the fact that the title minister or pastor intimidates people. I've been introduced in contexts and people find out I'm a minister. You can see the shocked look on their face. They're thinking, okay, what did I say that was inappropriate? I hate that feeling because automatically they feel somehow that I'm going to judge them as a holy man. That's one of the things in ministry I just don't like. For example, last week, Scotty and I took aside one of our young leaders in the church, in the office, Jonathan. which we're really proud of. We sat him down because we were talking to you about helping us with a new ministry. First thing Johnson said was, "Oh, I thought I was in trouble." I mean, so you can imagine how people feel when they're in need of someone talking to them about some problem, if they feel somehow you're judging them. Now, by the way, this is true of all of us. If you're a Christian and you talk to somebody, people have a tendency to feel like, well, we're holier than that. We're better than them. And it's really a problem. Years ago, I helped a couple, in fact our church did, a couple of houseless alcoholics. And by the way, this church has helped many families. We housed a boat family of 7 people. By the way, their children all ended up graduating from UC universities. They came here not understanding a word of English. They stayed right up here, and then their family moved to Anaheim. We've helped other families, wounded vets along the way. So this couple had already had their 2 children taken away from them by the social authorities. The man's name was Steve. His wife's name was Kathy. Steve was a real hard case. Over and over again, we'd meet in church office as we were helping him. And I appealed to Steve, I pleaded with Steve to stop his reckless behavior and drinking. And I realized from experience how rare it was to get an alcoholic to stay sober. Even though he lost his children, it was ruining his life. One day he and Kathy came in the office. I noticed Kathy had a black eye and bruises on her chin and on her upper shoulder. I asked Kathy to leave the room. And Steve and I had a different type of talk. Months later, they disappeared after that. That hard talk with Steve, he was gone. Months later, Kathy came into the office. "Kathy, where you been? You know, good to see you. Missed you guys. Where's Steve?" "He's dead." "He's dead?" "Yeah, he was in New Orleans waiting for a bus. And a guy came along and grabbed a woman's purse. And he chased after the guy down an alley. And the guy pulled the gun and killed him." Now, was this worth it? All the time, the money, the aggravation, the frustration, only to find out that Steve never gave up his reckless lifestyle, his hard drinking, and died in an alley alone. Or what about all those times we've spoken to someone out of love and concern, only to have someone be upset with us? Is it worth it? Or should we just put it in God's hands? No. Keep our mouths shut. Go the way of our culture. Now, for this issue, I looked to Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus displayed a remarkable ability to help people transform their lives from self-destruction without harsh criticism or without feeling that they were being judged. And that ought to be our model. First and foremost, Jesus showed compassion and unconditional love. When people know you love them unconditionally, they give you access to their lives, even if it makes them feel uncomfortable. Love transforms lives. When are we going to learn that as a culture? Love transforms lives, not programs. Programs may be necessary. Counseling may be necessary. But it's love that transforms somebody's life. Amen. To get them into counseling. You can't legislate this to change a people or a culture. The love of God, I would suggest, I believe, is the most powerful and compelling force that a human can experience. It's not under our power that we come to people to help them. The realization that we come with God and His love makes a difference. Not only to us, but we're not just speaking out of our own self-righteousness, or that we're perfect. But it makes a difference to those we reach out to in love and compassion. Secondarily, Jesus accepted the worst sinners and all of those who have been marginalized by society. Jesus practiced radical inclusion. I think we've talked about that before. And how tragic is it that the church has a reputation of practicing just the opposite. Radical exclusion. You're not good enough for us or for God unless you do this or measure up to that. How many divorced people would love to come to church but feel that they're not worthy because they've been made to feel that way?
Amen. Amen.
How many alcoholics feel that way? All people should feel welcome in Jesus' church.
Amen.
Gays, transgenders, all races, all political ideologies, divorced, poor, rich, educated, uneducated, young, old, even those who don't ride Harley Davidsons.
Well, that's good.
So radical inclusion helps with the problem that people feel judged. And if, as a culture, and especially as a church, we have to get beyond that barrier. Not keep our mouths shut, not keep our presence absent, but we have to get over that barrier of people feeling judged. By the way, you're probably like me. I never felt my parents or grandparents loved me any less when they were telling something for my own good. I felt accepted. I felt that as ordinary as I got, it never diminished their love for me, which is a good, secure way to feel. People ought to feel that way at church.
Yep.
For example, some of you know that I and some of my buddies, my senior year at Silmar High, got kicked out of school for ditching and drinking. Essentially, it was the entire first string of our varsity baseball team. And our baseball coach told us at the beginning of the season, Coach Rankin, hey, if you guys are ever, I won't tolerate drinking. If you guys ever drink, you're off the team. So all 9 starters, by the way, this got into the local papers. Silmar's baseball team, gone. We were in first place. We were in first place, by the way, too. So I came home and I had to tell my old man, by the way, who was an alcoholic himself, but would never tolerate me drinking.
Yeah.
I said, hey, Dad, I got expelled from school today. Blankety blank, what? And I said, yeah, what for? Me and Alan and some other guys ditched class. So I didn't want to tell him we were drinking, because it was bad enough. So later that evening, Coach Rankin calls.
Oy.
I answer the phone. Hey Rick, I just thought I'd talk to your parents about this. No, that's fine. I already told. No, I insist. So my dad, who was bricklayer, at 7 o'clock at night, he's already asleep in his chair. So I wake Dad up. I says, hey Dad, Coach Rankin wants to talk to you. What about? Oh, about us getting kicked out of school. Okay. And as he's on his way to the phone, he's just about ready to pick up the receiver. I said, hey, by the way, Dad, we were drinking. Anyway. Well, my dad was upset, but he never stopped loving me for that.
Yeah.
You did a stupid thing. Grow up. Jesus got people off the hook. Adultery, go in peace. Crooked tax collector, remember the poor, come on board to the kingdom. That's Jesus of Nazareth. What happened to the church's message? Notice Jesus never expected people to become worthy of God's love, to earn God's love through their piety or something. His good news was God already loves us the way we are. So love yourself. Don't punish yourself with feelings of unworthiness. Don't beat yourself up if you make mistakes. Drop the guilt. Embrace yourselves as God has embraced you. Besides that, you can't not love your neighbor if you don't love yourself. We have been liberated from that. We ought to be celebrating it and bring other people in to get the guilt off of their backs and to help them out. That they are not judged, they are loved. Let us help them. And lastly, Jesus' followers would remember him as the light of the world. A metaphor that you can see God through Jesus' life. Light is a metaphor for God's presence in the Bible. Jesus allowed God's love and hope to radiate through him in all that he said and did. When Jesus spoke, in other words, you heard God's voice, God's will. When Jesus forgave sinners, they experienced the wonderful liberation that comes from God's acceptance. When Jesus embraced the poor, it showed that God cared for the poor. What Jesus said about God's kingdom gave hope to a world of a better way, God's way. That's the light that he wants us to let shine. Now let me close with this. It's a beautiful analogy. I heard at the little part of the memorial for President George H. Bush something he shared with his minister. It was a reference to the stained glass cathedral. At the Washington National Cathedral. President Bush told his minister, and he remarked how beautiful this stained glass window is. And he says, especially when the sun lines up behind it. How spectacular it was. And then President Bush continued. He says, you know, we're all like stained glass windows in the dark until we allow the light of God to shine through us.
Amen.
You are beautiful to God. You are a colorful window that God has created. Let God's light shine through you.
Amen.
Amen.